Vaporwave News Network, episode 17.
Hello, and welcome to the Vaporwave News Network, a podcast about the contemporary Vaporwave scene. We feature news, discussion, and current trends, as well as reporting on releases and events in the Vaporwave, future funk, and adjacent communities. I'm your host Alex, aka Trucks Passing Trucks. I run Pacific Plaza Records in addition to DJing and booking events over my past 7 years of being involved in the Vaporwave community. Welcome to the Vaporwave News Network. It's episode 17, an abandoned episode covering summer 2024. Over 13 years since the start of this music genre and art movement. This episode was cobbled together in pieces and almost left to rot on the vine. I figured I might as well take what I had written though, and get back on the horse. It's going to be a bit of a weird one, but before we get to all that, let me remind you that you could check out our website, vaporwavenewsnetwork.com, where we have articles, reviews, and all our graphics from each episode of the show. If you click on support the show or subscribe, you can get added to our email newsletter or become a paid member to get exclusive content and financially support the show. You can also follow the podcast on social media at VW News Network. We're currently on Instagram, Twitter, plus we have a TikTok and a Blue Sky account, so please follow us and comment on our posts to help drive that engagement. If you join us on Blue Sky, there are 2 great custom feeds created by Ognos that feature artists, musicians, and people involved in the Vaporwave scene. The feed also catches all posts mentioning Vaporwave in the last 7 days. Twitter's totally shit the bed, and it's a bummer to see so many blue check marks, regardless of who has them, anytime when I open the app, so I pretty much stopped opening it, and with the influx of new people on Blue Sky, I'm getting that itch to be active and post some stuff on there, which I have been doing. Chorusback Records even did a giveaway on Blue Sky, so sign up if you're so inclined to have that kind of pre-2021 Twitter experience. They even have DMs now over on Blue Sky. We also have 2 curated playlists on Spotify that you can check out. Contemporary Vaporwave, which is our main playlist capturing all things Vaporwave, future funk, as well as the beloved subgenres like slushwave, barber beats, late night lo-fi, vapor trap, and of course classic style. And then there's Fresh Future Funk, which is loaded with current tracks from the past 6 months and classics or deep cuts from the past. I had a pretty hefty load of new selections to both playlists recently, over 30 new tracks between the 2 of them, so go check them out. Quick reminder to subscribe to the podcast or follow us on your platform of choice. If you're checking this out on YouTube, remember to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. And if you can leave a rating on your streaming platform of choice, please do that as well. I was surprised to see how many ratings we have on Spotify, so thank you everybody who's rated the podcast. If you are listening on Spotify Mobile, scroll down to the description and interact with our polls and Q&A. I'd really love to see more action down there when I post those. If you want to support the show, head over to our website, vaporwavenewsnetwork.com, and become a member or associate producer. A big thank you to our highest tier supporters, Mackie and Joe B. If you'd like to join them in supporting the Vaporwave News Network, you can join the associate producer tier for $10 a month. If you can only donate $5 a month, you'll still get access to exclusive content like the bonus Vaporwave history articles, mixes, and interviews that we've done over this year. And even if you can't financially support the show, you can sign up for the free tier so you get an email notification every time a new episode or feature article comes out. I'm also going to start doing a monthly roundup of written articles, think pieces, and videos from various sources about things kind of tangential to Vaporwave, live electronic music, dance music, and music history in general, so sign up ASAP if you want to get the first one for October. It's going out to members of all tiers. So what's been going on with me? I'm sure some people are curious because I haven't been very active on social media. Well, the end of the summer was a real heater down here in Southern California, and after working full-day summer camps for 12 weeks straight, I was hoping I'd have a chance to collect myself, work on some projects, and prepare for the fall. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any of my episodes done this summer, and then I missed out on going to a bunch of good shows and festivals. I did get to play a few gigs down in San Diego for Sweat.biz, although my set was moved up and cut by 30 minutes at one of those shows due to a mixture of management incompetence and the power going out at the venue multiple times that night. Real annoying, but we did have a banging turnout for our Comic-Con gig, which we got asked to do on short notice. It was actually our first Friday night that we've had at the Whistle Stop since we moved there a few years ago. But beyond that, I wasn't very active in the vapor sphere this summer, and personally I had a hard time focusing on long-term projects, things like the podcast, my label, other things, and I was hoping to try out some new kinds of content and, justify the break in long form episodes, but the longer I put off getting back to the usual episodes and didn't have any success with the other types of content I was working on, the more and more daunting it started to feel. So, like I mentioned earlier, this episode is not complete, but it's for the most part what I had worked up by mid-August, right before I had to start training and orientation for the new school year at my job. Once Labor Day passed and school was in full swing, we actually also had some massive fires out here in Southern California, including the airport fire, which burned a lot of my favorite hiking spots and the place where I filmed that DJ set in the canyon back in 2021. It was a big bummer, and obviously took a lot of my attention for that week it burned, but luckily those fires didn't burn the mountains, where I actually attended a wedding, the wedding of Data Girl and Nano Shrine, which was a few weeks later. It was a really heartwarming occasion, an awesome milestone on a lifelong journey for two very talented folks from our scene. And it was pretty cool to party alongside some of our Vapor friends and take pictures with the dog mayor of Idlewild, California. He was awesome. I love Mayor Max. I had met him a couple years ago, and it was very nice to meet him again. Speaking of cute animals, another thing that's been taking up my time lately has been a new kitten. Up here at our house in Anaheim, we have a colony of feral cats in our neighborhood, and one of the female cats that hangs around has had 2 litters in or near our yard this year. And 2 of those kittens have kind of become outdoor members of the colony, but we had to help wean them once their mom stopped feeding them, and we still give them an extra nutritious meal every night. There's a local lady who leaves giant bowls of food out for all the cats in the colony, but it's adult food, so our 2 little kittens outside, Orange Guy and Stripey, they've kept coming back to munch in our backyard for dinner. Now, their mom also had another litter, which was just 1 kitten, which I guess is kind of rare, and sadly, after a week, she abandoned the little guy. So after conferring with our neighbors, we took him in as a foster kitten, since the mother disappeared from our neighborhood. My girlfriend named him Peppermint, since we found him in a mint bush, and he's just over a month old right now, and he's doing really well. He's able to use the litter box on his own, he messily eats food from his bowl, and he's actually scampering around the house as I record this. He's got a lot of energy to get out. So I'll post a picture on our Instagram story for those of you who are curious what this little guy looks like. I guess the type of fur coloration he has is called a lynx point tabby. So he's got beautiful blue eyes, and I love the little guy. I'm not sure if we're going to keep him, but we're definitely going to keep fostering him and raising the little guy. Finally, I'm not going to recommend anything this week. I'm just going to move on with the podcast. As you'll be able to tell, this section is something I wrote recently, and like everything else except for the Vapor History segment, I wrote back in August. It's going to be kind of funky, but I hope you'll still enjoy it. I'm also going to be sending out an email to all of our subscribers with a handful of great articles and think pieces like I mentioned earlier, so make sure you sign up for the email newsletter if you want to get that in November. As always, if you're doing a streaming event and need a DJ set, get in touch. I'm also available to do IRL gigs with enough notice since I'm back to my usual flexible schedule at work. You can get in contact through my DJ Instagram at TrucksPassingTrucks. Now, on to the show. What's happened in the Vaporwave scene this summer? Well, this summer we had shows in so many places, including London, San Diego, St. Louis, Denver, Portland, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Chicago, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Lima, Peru, and more. There were also festivals like I2K in Richmond, Virginia, and Gulfwave down in Florida. Altered States Festival was also down in South Carolina, and Slushwave 2024 was in Belgium. There was also tours, including a tour with Future Funk Legends by the promoters Yoitoki. There are some shows that happen this fall that we'll cover in the upcoming segment as well, but if you want to keep up with the calendar of things that are going to be happening going into the end of the year here, you're going to want to go check out www.arcology.online/events. Our partner website over there will have all the information you need about upcoming stuff, and you could submit your event over there too. What's been going on in the URL space this summer? Well, I'm going to try and cover as many of the URL events that happened. There was quite a few, which was really cool to see. And many of them were Barber Beats themed, such as the Void TV Barber Beats Festival that was back in mid-May, as well as new episodes of Void TV on their Motherboard YouTube channel. We also had Barbergeddon on a very busy June weekend. A lot of artists posted their sets from those streams. And Skyline Live was also on that same weekend, and it ran for 3 days with a huge lineup of folks. SignalCon 2024, hosted by Naoko Koed, went down on YouTube over July 12th, 13th, and 14th, with appearances by Infinity Frequencies, International Telecom, Christ, and many, many more. Dawn Room was a new URL showcase hosted by Brief White Light, which premiered on YouTube July 26th. It had sets from ASVMR, Your Discovery, and others. The replay is up on their YouTube channel. On August 24th, Retrack Records hosted a URL fest on YouTube as well. Slushwave 2024 happened August 29th through September 1st. It was streaming online via Vapor Memory for the first 2 days, and there was a live event in Belgium on August 31st, plus a bonus outdoor nature wave show on September 1st. I think this might have been kind of the landmark festival of 2024 with a unique blend of IRL and URL, which really helped take the subgenre to the next level. There's also been a lot more Bandcamp and YouTube premieres and album listening parties. You can find a lot of those over on the Arcologies event page and on the Bandcamp live page. Luxury Aesthetics Virtual Gallery with DJ Non had 2 episodes in June, 2 in July, and 2 in August. He's been showcasing a great mix of new releases, lesser known artists, and some old school deep cuts. You can check him out on YouTube. Hot Takes has been back in action with their 4th season. They're streaming on Twitch on Mondays, as well as uploading episodes to YouTube and podcast platforms. You can check out their episodes from this summer, where they interviewed future funk rocker, Heaven Sample, Otto, Sky Yamaha, and a special remix episode that happened in mid-August with 2 guests, Limerence, formerly known as Patch Notes, and Christ. Luxury Elites and Neon Nights kept those summer evenings warm with 2 episodes each month, including a quote, kinda sorta birthday party for Lux in mid-August. Sights, Sounds, and Conversations with Codex Encyclopedia was back on July 4th with their 4-year anniversary episode. It was full of goodies including interviews with Quiz, music from Sev, artwork, music videos, and more. Big Baby Prophet is still streaming all vinyl DJ sets, which you can catch on YouTube every Wednesday night. On the podcast front, Future Sounds UK had a few new episodes this summer, including the induction of a new host, Aldo, aka Groove Remote, plus interviews with Cat System Corp and Runners Club 95. Utopia District's podcast dropped an interview back in June with the 2 dudes behind the I2K Festival, Roche Corp and Van Gogh. They also uploaded a video album from Naoko Koed called VHS Collection on their YouTube channel. Night Clerk Radio has continued to drop episodes reviewing new music, starting with Alpha Chrome Yayo and the Luxury Noise album that my label released earlier this year, as well as stuff from That's Matt, Iacon, FM Forest, and Christ albums. They delved back into some themed episodes later in the summer, like movie rescoring, melted summer jams, and dungeon synth dance music. They also talked about my best of 2023 future funk DJ mix, which only used tracks from artists and albums on our end of the year list last year. Thank you guys so much for doing that. It was really cool to hear someone talk about the music that I'd selected. The Assorted Vaporwave podcast is apparently on indefinite hiatus again, but they did drop an interview with the Monarch on the Virtual Lounge 2.0 Bandcamp page this summer. In other news, there was a really great interview by Listen Corp with Dennis from Geometric Lullaby about their artist discovery series, and it touches on his thought processes behind curating the music on his label. Find the link to it in the description or on their website, listencorp.co.uk. You can also pick up issue 6 of Listen Corp over on their website and Etsy page. I've bought every issue so far, and they are always well worth it. Krell's, the Vaporfunk streaming channel on YouTube, was actually taken down back in May. It eventually restarted again over on Icecast, but it was an unfortunate loss for people who were trying to discover Vaporwave on YouTube and wanted to hear a variety of tracks from a wide array of producers. There was also a lot of great older gems in there. I personally used to listen to it all the time when I was working alone late at night at the old escape room job pre-pandemic. Luckily, the 24/7 Vaporfunk stream did return on a new channel called Krell's Relay. That's KRELEZRELAY. And you can find that over on YouTube. That's one of my favorite 24/7 Vapor streams. Pad Changton put out some videos this summer. It was about some vinyl records from Villain, who've always been known for their immaculate presentation and physical media quality. The YouTube channel Soul Search and Destroy also put out a new video essay on their second channel called Voyages. It's called A Nostalgic History of Chillwave, and they also put out some new mixes on their main channel. on the Vaporwave and Future Funk subreddit, there's been quite a bit of discussion about AI, which is something that I kind of want to explore in an upcoming episode. I made a discussion post asking about people's experience using AI tools to make Vaporwave content, but it got downvoted to hell and received no responses, which was unfortunate, but that's kind of how it goes. It's a really touchy thing right now. It's a topic I want to get into more this fall as we continue to see more AI being used to produce content in the scene. Everything from music and samples to artwork and videos. People have even been posting albums completely made of AI in Future Funk and Spotify and Barber Beats. So, I don't know, get at me if you have any thoughts about AI in the Vaporwave scene right now. And finally, it's the Bandcamp beat. We're bringing up the latest updates related to the platform and the Vaporwave scene. Interestingly enough, there has been some stuff going down over the last couple weeks, but I'm going to save that for my next episode, and I'm just going to talk about the summer. And I've been continuing to use the unimproved Discover tool, as I always do for the recent release section of the show. And I noticed there's just a lot of joke releases, re-releases of previously lost or taken down albums that are just clogging up the feed. It's not actually new albums. It's not actually new artists. And worst of all, I've grown irrationally mad at the giant right-hand sidebar, which features the top release of the genre by default, or like whatever album you've clicked. And it's just way too huge. It takes away a whole column of releases on the desktop, and it's just unsightly. So anyway, that's my rant. But one of the last things I noticed recently was that labels or artists are trying to direct people away from Bandcamp. There's a lot of this going on. They're even trying to get people to purchase downloads on a separate website by putting the price lower than what they have on Bandcamp. It's so weird. It seems to be another step away from the platform, like the glut of labels who choose to add sold-out items on their Bandcamp with purchase links only available at their online store. It is kind of ironic that they're undermining the platform, giving them free community, free email support, and the ability to really sell and distribute this kind of music. But I do understand that some people are mad about the fees, despite how much Bandcamp really does offer on the artist's back end. Anyhow, Bandcamp Friday happened in May. It was back in September. It happened in October. There's going to be one more in December. Otherwise, things have been quiet on the Bandcamp Union front, and Songtray themselves have been quiet on both their websites and social media. I'm sure there was a lot more news I didn't get to. If there's things that you think are important going on in the Vaporwave or adjacent scenes, please feel free to send in some tips to the podcast, whether that's through our Instagram page or through email. Now, I'm going to talk about more shows and events. Normally, this would be the upcoming shows and events section, but most of these events I'm going to talk about have already passed, and I even went to one of them. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of labels who are doing listening parties on Bandcamp and on YouTube, but you can check the official Bandcamp homepage for live events and streams to see if there's any labels or vapor names you recognize at bandcamp.com/live. Hot Takes was back with a new episode in September on the 2nd with special guest Strip Silence, and had an episode with Van Poggum later in the month. Vapor Loot was a 2-day streaming festival held by Lost Colossus that featured some Barber Beats artists and other genres. It was the first weekend of September on the Rabbit Hole Club YouTube channel. In terms of IRL gigs, in September, Night Tempo announced a short USA tour that happened from the 4th till the 13th of September with shows along the West Coast as well as Chicago and Brooklyn. Orograph continued touring and playing sporadic shows around the USA this fall. He already hit some dates during the summer, including the Altered States Fest, but he'll also be heading up through the Rocky Mountains to Idaho in mid-September, with West Coast dates in late September and early October supporting Pixel Grip. One of those shows he played was at the Platypus in St. Louis, put on by Vaporspace STL back on September 14th. Midwest Aesthetic was back with 2 shows in the Heartland. On Friday, September 13th, they were in Madison, Wisconsin at the Gamma Ray with Frank Javsi, A Hero, Vape Sister Juno, and the Overmorrow. Friday, September 20th, they were in Chicago at Burlington Bar with Frank Javsi, Discoholic, Vape A Hero, and Van Gogh. September 14th, there was a show in Phoenix, Arizona put on by the Desert Dreams Collective featuring Sky Yamaha, Twin Crab, Pack of Newports, and more artists. In Lansing, Michigan, there was a mini-fest called Secret Rave on September 21st with a bunch of great Vaporwave and chill synth artists, including Chlorine Mist, Crystal Eternal, King Quartz, VCR Headaches, CVAG H, and more. Sweat.biz was back in San Diego at the Whistle Stop on September 22nd for TwitchCon weekend with special guests Uncle Joe, and you would have also caught me DJing there. Yoitoki had a few events this fall, including September 27th at the Masquerade Atlanta, September 28th in New York, and there was a party on the 27th in San Francisco at the Rickshaw Stop. And finally, there are October events that happened, including Phoenix, Arizona on the 5th, where there was a show at the Thundercat Lounge featuring Uniwa, Vape Air, and Hotel Pools. Yoitoki returned to Los Angeles on Saturday the 19th for a special single release party with special guest Macross at the Terragram Ballroom. You might have caught my show review I posted on the website. I mean, hopefully I've uploaded already. Yoitoki was also back in Baltimore on October 12th at the Baltimore Soundstage. And finally, at the end of October, Young Bae is starting a tour across North America in celebration of the 10-year anniversary of his first album, Bae. 9 shows have already been announced, and there are more incoming. Supposedly, he's only going to play old tracks from the Bae series of albums on this tour, including his newest album, Bae 6. If you have upcoming events you want featured in our next episode, please submit over at vaporwavenewsnetwork.com/submissions. In addition to my event submission form, we've partnered with the Arcology on a consolidated listing, and you can get to their calendar by clicking on the Events tab on our website. If you send something through my submission forms, make sure you submit your event over on their website as well, www.arcology.online/events. Current and recent releases. Today, I'm going to be reviewing an album by an up-and-coming future funk producer that was included on our Best of 2023 list, and this album was my pick for Album of the Summer. French producer Kuek released his new album Apogee on May 31st through My Pet Flamingo. It's the follow-up to his breakout album Downtown, a debut that was widely lauded in the future funk community, on our end-of-the-year poll, and by DJs playing future funk gigs. Apogee boasts a hefty 14-song tracklist, many of them songs he has been accruing and releasing as singles since last summer. Only a few of those singles caught and retained my attention, so hearing songs like Nikki in context of that full album gave me a greater appreciation for the song. It's a welcome VHS pop reprieve from the heavy bass and increasing energy of the prior songs on the album. Similarly, the opening track Golden Age makes much more sense as an opening introduction to the album instead of a standalone single. It's a swaggering, walking tempo groove that gives us a sampler of his stylistic touches: warm thumping drums, shiny horn fanfares, syrupy flangers, and nice melodic loops. Despite the long track list, Kuek has arranged the songs in a way that showcases a variety of melodic sample-based future funk, with some standout songs, like the previously released Club Dial, and my pick for future funk song of the summer, Moonlight, a steamy, mid-tempo banger, perfect for a hot summer evening. Moonlight has multiple breakdowns, bridges, and solos to keep your ears glued to the speakers, with deft sample loops and vocal choices. The percussive syncopation, rotund drums, and cosmic synths draw you into the quiet moments and propel the choruses to the next level of dopamine-inducing grooves. With such a great single at the prime album position, track 3, it can be tough to fill out the rest of the album. While the tempo does begin to kick up a few notches throughout the middle section, it wasn't until we were firmly in the B-side that my attention was piqued again. Now, if you're a fan of future funk with rap vocals, you might enjoy some of the songs like Money more than I did. But the repetitive verses on that one left me wanting more. It was the same with the vocal samples in the next song, So Young, which does have a nice acid house feel, similar to some stuff Vantage had on his recent Neo Metro City album. But many tracks in this middle section of the album try to capture similar vibes to the popular songs on his previous albums, as well as other ravey future funk that's kind of come out in the past 2 years. None of them are duds per se, and some might be great for DJs to add to their crates, but I was starting to feel like the album was lacking variety, until I heard the sparse intro to the song Inner Garden. The melodramatic piano and filtered breakbeat drums blossom into a sun-shining fanfare with a swing and tropical beat that eschews the four-on-the-floor kick drum of the previous tracks. It's a dramatic contrast of emotion between the filter breakdowns and the choruses that bring renewed energy to the album and evoke images of skimming across the ocean waves in a white catamaran, watching the Golden Coast fly by. The crescendo continues with the next song, Heart, a collaboration with an upcoming producer I really dig called Starlight. What starts as a typical up-tempo future funk edit with a low-pass fade-in and a ripping guitar solo bursts into a spectacularly reharmonized bridge that really made my ears prick up and made me audibly exclaim, "Damn, that's sick," upon my first listen to the track. Kuwait continues with a run of strong tracks to finish the album, from acid-laced disco funk to hard-hitting electro to melancholic late-night lo-fi like the track Nikki I mentioned earlier. This part of the album hasn't gotten a lot of plays on Spotify, unfortunately, probably due to the lull in the middle, but these final tracks are a diverse collection of future funk and vaporwave that really deserve your attention. The halftime trap breakdowns in full speed are monstrous alongside silky smooth vocal samples. The steel drums of Kadabra clang over squelching synth like the soundtrack of an industrial video game level. I mentioned Nikki earlier, a gorgeous reprieve from the uptempo tracks on Apogee, and the album finally closes with another standout single I mentioned earlier, Club Dial, which has been played out by many DJs I've talked to in the scene. Despite the middling middle section of the album, its 14 tracks have a ton to offer the casual and dedicated future funk fan, as well as vaporheads who've been wondering what new artists are popping off on the future funk side of things lately. This album and the track Moonlight were my future funk album and song of the summer, so you can go check out Apogee by Kuwait on My Pet Flamingo, as well as all streaming platforms like Bandcamp and Spotify. Onto the releases section. So I put this together back in August and I tried to cover a bit of July, but I don't know, I didn't go back and try and fill in the gaps for the whole summer. So I'm mostly going to touch on releases from the first half of August and maybe some other notable summer releases. Here we go. Young Bae and Vantage put out an EP called Baby Girl that was officially released in July. It collected some of their singles from earlier this year and had a new track, Hold Tight, which is on our Fresh Future Funk playlist. Hotel Pools released his album Nature back in mid-May and quickly followed it up in July with an album called Philo, which you can pick up from Stratford Court, and you can hear a track from it on our Contemporary Vaporwave playlist. Belgian producer Vanitas put out a new album, Neo Renaissance, at the Contemporary Art Museum, a reference to his seminal album from 2019. Tupperwave added another entry to his Vapor Loops compilation series, albums full of Echo Jam type songs. This one's Volume 3, and it's over on his Bandcamp and on Spotify with a track leading off our Contemporary Vaporwave playlist. Dan Mason released his new album Fluorescence on June 14th, and we reviewed the lead single off it on our last episode. On the future funk side of things, Neon City Records put out a few new albums, including Textures by Rose Redusu, Midnight by Luan Mer, Sunrise Sunset by Saturn Genesis, aka Desired. Montaigne Records sadly announced that they will be shutting down the label back on May 27th via posts on social media. The team is taking some time away to focus on their personal projects and music after a hefty release schedule in 2023. They've put out lots of great stuff over the years, and their recent Montaigne Volume 3 compilation has some bangers on it that you really should check out if you're a future funk DJ. Chance De La Soul put out a new album that's supposedly the last album before their indefinite hiatus, according to the Bandcamp description. See You Soon came out on August 2nd, putting a cap on their 5-year run in the future funk scene, but they've continued to put out singles and other work that I assume was finished before they made that decision. Mexican producer Superflat released a bunch of singles in June that also included some B-sides and remixes on his Bandcamp. Longtime producer Tua put out a new EP back in mid-July called Subversion 909 over on their Bandcamp. Corespec Records has finally dropped the This Is Future Funk Volume 1 vinyl, and First Class Collective is handling the cassette release for it. Corespect also put out 2 albums in August, one from the Yukio, which is a part 2 of their release Future Nights, and the other from Saynas, who dropped their album Sunshine on August 16th. Mexican producer Prue's new album Funk's Not Dead is out, and we included his collab with Discoholic on our Fresh Future Funk playlist. Seattle producer Lucky Talisman released a new album called Supersonic on June 14th, which has a collab with Happy Cola Baby that landed on our playlist as well. Happy Cola Baby also dropped their first single since last year's fan favorite EP. It's called Going Sideways and came out through the Nightfall Collective. Core Out put out a new single, Do You Love Me, at the end of June, and they also did a collab single with 240 called Why in July. Barb Walters put out a new album called Fantasy on July 26th, and the lead single Cali Girl is on our Fresh Future Funk playlist. Flammy put out a new album at the end of June called Blood Uncensored. 2023 favorite Hot Singles put out a new release with new songs and remixes from friends in the scene called Caramel in late July. On the Barber Beats front, Slower Paced has released new albums Euterpe's Call and Virtual Shelter, as well as a 3-song EP called Self Ban with tracks from their Void TV set. Macroblank released the album Fetish in June and a split album called Elegiac Blasphemy with Oblique Occasions in July, chicly called Macroblink 2 in small font on the artwork. And then Macroblank dropped a 300-track 24-hour mix called Abrasive Collection that has a mega upload link in the YouTube video description. Oblique Occasions dug out an unreleased album from the archives that was supposed to come out in 2022 called Inevitable, and put out an album that translates to Sister-in-Law in August. Opal Vessel put out a new album, These Things Are Not Made For Us, and a new EP called Disfigurement early in the summer, and then dropped Worthless Alone on the label Arctic Contact in August. Cassettes have already sold out. Savant Shadow put out a new album in June called Solitude, and an album in July called 0 Hour, and a mix in August. Mabisio released 2 new albums, Stories Live in Time and Everything Is Still Under Control. We also had Recycling the Jazz by Virtual Vice, which is a Mabisio side project that was reissued on No Problema tapes in June. They also put out a new album on August 1st called Tears of the Sea. Barber Beats producer Gore put out their Void TV mix on Bandcamp and released 2 albums called Filth and Premonition this summer. Godspeed's 27th release came out in June. The title translates to Misery Companion. Their 28th release came out in July, and it translates to Heaven's Backyard. Guild Merchant put out 5 albums since their split with Known Artiste back in May, and they did another collab album with them called In Eulogy that came out in July. I already mentioned a few splits this summer, but we had some more, like Gore and Dark Desire with their album Siren Song. Micromecha, Insomniac, and Sodium Chloride released a 3-way split called Love, Death, Robots. Micromecha also did a split with Undersaken, appropriately titled Mechasaken. VAAV Social Club and Permanent Zimp also put out an album called Barbarian Beats in late June. Macroblank and Oblique Occasions put out Elegiac Blasphemy on July 12th, as I mentioned earlier. Mabisio and Magdalene put out a split called Nocturnal Creatures, which also got a physical reissue on No Problema tapes this summer. Dirty River put out 6 releases in addition to their Void TV set this summer. Micromecha put out 2 albums since our last episode, and splits, like I mentioned earlier. Magdalene put out their Void TV mix and a couple new albums called 1997, Frederick's Secret Garden, and Beekeeper 2 on their Bandcamp. They've really been blowing up lately, and there's been a lot of reissues of their music. I'm glad I tapped in on that artist early. They make really good music. Canadian Barber Beats producer Known Artiste put out 6 albums as well as their Barbageddon set on Bandcamp. Connecticut Barber Beats producer Time Fragment released their mixes for Barbageddon and Void TV, as well as albums called Sunken Eyes, Talpa, and New Light. Majestic 12 released a new album called Pyromaniac and dropped their Barbageddon set on Bandcamp. Mexican producer Permanent Zimp put out 2 albums, Hear Me in June and Evil in August, and we've included a track from Evil on our Contemporary Vaporwave playlist. Moz by Default is back with 2 albums, one called South Cougars Jazz Ensemble, which came out May 31st, and the other, God Given Mercy, came out on August 9th. He also mentioned in the Bandcamp description that he's playing a festival in Texas in October. Pizza Hotline released his new album in June. It's called Polygon Island and has 8 new tracks of VGM drum and bass. Rochester artist Trendy without the E's released their Utopian Virtual album, Virtua, on their Bandcamp July 19th. There's a great review of it up on Listen Corp's website. International Telecom put out a new album, At Night, that some Bandcamp reviews are calling a sequel to their album X-Naught mentioned in last year's list, 3am Signals. Slushwave artist Illusionary put out a new album called As We Watch the Sky. Aexion and Dream Stardia released a collab album, Nights of Azure, on June 6th. Mom and Dad's Computer put out an album Clubhouse and an album under their TCR4 alias called VGA Waterfall. CD, aka Dreamcorp, put out their first new album since February called VHS Sleep. Hotel Shampoo put out 2 new albums in June. First is called All My Time, and the other one is called Salon Toi. Brick Mason put out a new Hushwave album called Red Glow at the end of June. The Microgram released an album, Eternity, and an EP in June. Sangam released a new EP called The Care EP earlier in the summer and announced a new album for September 6th called Inside at Night. First single, Orange Bliss, is out now and on our contemporary Vaporwave playlist. Renja has a new single called We're Mine, which we add to our playlist as well. Horizon Wireless released a new album called Forever Sanitarium, which has 23 slushy nature wave tracks. Second Sight has released a couple new EP-length releases and released new albums later in the summer. Drowned Memories put out a new album on Atmo called Constant/Movement on June 13th. Iacon has been back and releasing a lot of AI-assisted albums like Quenched, Sugar Free, Boostin', and Fizz Fuel. Notorious Secret released part 4 of their ongoing series called Entwined Fates through Utopia District on July 19th. Fiji put out a new album of VHS pop and vapor funk on June 13th called Straight to VHS. Parody Wave producer DJ Cena put out an album in mid-May called Praise the Sunshine. Comet released their new synthy album, Sentient Sands, on June 6th. OK Sure put out a new album on FT 1% called Building a Better Corporate America on June 14th. The Malltalk Collective put out a compilation of, you guessed it, Mallsoft called 2000 Leagues Under the Sears, with appearances by artists like Mindspring Memories, Tefco, Kenmore Classic, and US Golf 95. The Signal Wave community put out a compilation called The Gas Station Mega Compilation on Hitachi Home Video. The label Pool House Limited reemerged this summer to drop a new edition of their Buy Now compilation series. It's the 4th edition and it's the label's first release in over 6 years. On the net label front, Sunset Grid has released some new albums by UV.exe, Ezra, Foxes, Doomsday Video, OK Sure, Lewich, DJ Not Not, Blokebuster, Joe Dominguez, Part-Time Playboy, and more, including a compilation 08, which celebrates 8 years of the net label. Bogus Collective released a bunch of new albums this summer from artists like Atavistic, Last Ceremony, Pina Colada, Vapid, Dystopian Exoplanet, Ezra, Lars Hauer, Kenmore Classic, Paradise Springs, Echograms, VAAV Social Club, Harmony and Ultraviolet, Bob Genghis Khan, Goosemane, Frosley, and a multi-artist collab called Scorpio Enterprises, which featured contributions from Giovanni Scorpio, Stellar Dolphin Boulevard, Time Fragment, and more. Photoshop Co. has released new albums from the projects Color Advanced SP, Weather Chan, Action Replay, Rainforest Plaza, Tobakiri Man, VGCG, Roman Bust, PlayStation Platinum, Cute Aesthetics, and more. My Pet Flamingo released some new stuff, including Horizons by Timeshare 94, their first foray into barber beats. And early in the summer, they put out After Hours by Sleepless Nights. Virtua 94 put out a compilation called Greenhouse that seems to collect tracks from throughout their discography and some new stuff as well. Shadow for All Industries reissued stuff from Kenmore Classic, Guild Merchant, Desert Sands Feel Warm at Night, and Hakita. Geometric Lullaby put out vinyl records by Scott Lawler, Abaddon, and an artist whose name translates to Breeze and Thick Fog. They also had an open pre-order for a cassette reissue of Internet Club's classic album New Life Deluxe, which we talked about back on episode 13th. Fortunately, if you're hearing this now, you missed it. They also put out some new music from Red Zealot called Scriptum Sanguinis, which was categorized as Phantom Beats. And another release by Red Zealots called Cults with a Z. No Problema Tapes put out many reissues as usual, including stuff from Abyssio, Nova Die, Magdalene, Gore, Male Alchemy, and Virtual Vice. They also put out a Dreamtone album from Euphoria Engine called Eye of the Soul, and an album by Pink Forestry called Elpiminen. I also mentioned the new Sangam album Inside at Night, which they put out on September 6th. Gorgeous Lights released a new bundle of AI weather music, including albums by Cosmic Cycler, Oscob, and a collab by Kratzwerk and Florida Rains, plus a split album in July by Cosmic Cycler and Oscob called Midnight Rendezvous. Pure Life Tapes got busy this summer putting out 3 releases, Red Gates by Haytal, Untitled by Background, which both had visual albums to go with them, and Dreaming Machines by Kuroi Ame and Eulalie. Qingdao Market, the satirical parody label, has been revived and partnered up with No Problema Tapes to reissue non-parody Barber Beats albums and a Slushwave album by Euphoria that translates to Dry Sequence. Global Pattern is back and they put out a trio called the Out Limits bundle that features Your Discovery and Cyber Server's Exoforest, Buxo Tools and Sleep Paralysis' album Solar Plexus, and Everything's album Superliminal. Doki Doki Beats put out a new album called Working Title by Penthouse Suites that also has a collab with iClick on it, as well as reissues of Magdalene and Virtual Girls Band, aka Chance de la Soul. Underwater Computing released a bunch of reissues and some new stuff from artists like Zarenka, Toran, Tim Six, Abaddon, Escape, Neon Mushroom Tea, and a new album by Soulcraft that translates to She Comes to Me in the Moonlight. Business Casual had a reissue of the late Arcane album that we loved, plus their yearly compilations, as well as a new album by That's Matt called The Lone Ranger. In June, they released albums by Amos.Sis, Strawberry Station, Vanitas, Bart Graft, and Last Ceremony. In July, they put out albums by Jingoro, Wizard of Loneliest, Daydriver, and Personal Digital Assistant. In August, they released albums from Limousine, Kylon Palm, Corrupt Save, Nameless Warning, and Mr. Introvert. That's it. If you have any upcoming releases to send to us for coverage in the next episode, please head over to vaporwavenewsnetwork.com/submissions and use the upcoming release submission form to get in contact with us. So the truly abandoned part of this episode is the main topic. I could read some of the bullet points I started writing out and perhaps a sentence or two that kind of resembles the thesis, but I won't waste your time. The three main areas I was going to address were takedowns in music, postures and bootlegs, and discussing sample culture in general. Heady and vaporous stuff, you know? Now, I originally hadn't written a Vaporwave history segment, but since the topics for that are evergreen and it's one of my favorite sections, I went and I found something that you will hopefully all enjoy. This week in Vaporwave history. For our Vaporwave history segment this episode, I'm covering a release from 2012 that helped birth a crucial subgenre of the scene's second wave, Vacant Places by Hantasy. Vacant Places came out on September 6, 2012, and it was the first album under the moniker Hantasy. Looking back at the artist's Facebook page, not only did he release this album, but he released multiple albums and singles throughout the end of 2012 and into 2013. He's still releasing music to this day, and he has a vast catalog that you definitely should check out. But back to this album, while not initially tagged Vaporwave upon release, Mallsoft was added to it by March 2013, and the album's conceptual nature, recontextualized samples, and ability to invoke an unsettling nostalgia made it ripe for inclusion in the Vaporwave canon. Upon release, it was available as a free digital download and a self-release CD that was merely $4.99, right in line with the DIY productions and pricing of the 2000s. If you don't know, before cassettes became cool again, people in grassroots and DIY music scenes were finally getting access to pro-replicated CDs in small batches, or using their own computers to burn their own CDRs and making packaging themselves throughout the 2000s. The CD version of this album, with original and alternate artwork, was released in a limited run of 100, although it's tough to find any pictures of those CDs nowadays. Listening to Vacant Places in the wake of a million other Mallsoft albums that have come out over the past 10 years is a bit of a revelation. This is not the literal take on Mallsoft that we hear from most producers, aka the soundtrack of being in a mall during the 80s or 90s. It's not a mixtape of washed-out song snippets peering through the haze and ambient noise of zoned-out shoppers. The tracks on Vacant Places reverberate through the empty halls and memories of consumer spaces, and it predates some of the other early Mallsoft touchstones, like Hologram Plaza by Disconsciousness, All Mall by Cat System Corp, and Yes We're Open by Groceries. While there is some sampling of Muzak and Weather Channel adjacent music, the most striking sample choices are of music that sounds much older than the typical eras sampled in Vaporwave productions. Light classical, old-timey jazz, and exotica broaden the scope of nostalgia and broaden the conceptual arc of Vacant Places. This tour through the decaying halls of the almighty dollar traces the haunted history of these social spaces. Not only do we move through the spaces, thanks to the narrative created by the track names, but we move through time. The generous helpings of reverb and echo congeal these various sample sources together, seamlessly transporting you to different eras of this decaying space's life, from the pre-war Art Deco trappings of the upper class, to the mid-century modernism of the post-war era, to the glass facades of the late-stage capitalist suburbs. We get a window into the life and death of these consumerist spaces throughout the 20th century. In the comments section of the YouTube upload on the Vapor Memory channel, some avid sample hunters have tracked down a number of sources for this album. And something that sticks out to me in the sample list is a series of recordings by East German pianist and composer Henry Seeger, who doesn't have much info online, at least in English. The tracks come from a late compilation of light jazz and blues recordings he made that translates directly to Piano Dream Melodies, which is fitting for this liminal album, which completely transforms the emotions and settings of its various sample sources. Fantasy has a vast catalog of hauntological, plunderphonic, and ambient music, with a few standout releases that have also been canonized within the scene. Notably, his compilation Liminal Spaces, which is sort of a successor to Vacant Places, and even includes the track Northwest Plaza, among other cuts from his 2010s catalog, has a great video about it on Pad Chennington's channel. Check it out, it also has some commentary about it from the artist himself. However, back in 2018, the artist also dubbed another release of his as a spiritual successor to Vacant Places in a Facebook post. The album A Government, which was released by the now defunct label Net Century. I recommend you check out both the album A Government and Net Century's deep catalog, which became a home for second wave producers to release their late 2010s work, as well as a platform for the early albums of contemporary favorites like VCR Classique, Desert Sands Feels Warm at Night, Cryosana, Channel Select. Vacant Places has gone on to have a lasting legacy in the vaporwave scene, bridging the gap between the hauntological works of the 2000s like The Caretaker and William Basinski's Disintegration Loops, as well as other unsettling works of sampled music in the subgenres of vapor like Signal Wave, Hush Wave, and of course, Mallsoft. The album's treatment of the liminal spaces of consumerism continues to inspire artists to this day, and invokes the anemoia, nostalgia for a past you never experienced, for the next generation who never got to go to the shopping mall in its cultural prime. While there may be more well-known Mallsoft albums that came out in its wake, Vacant Places is a unique and eerie journey through the different eras of the shopping mall. Before the subgenre was even defined, Fantasy's album, Vacant Places, set the stage and put a new spin on the nostalgic and haunted music of plunderphonic vaporwave. You can listen to the album on Fantasy's Bandcamp, but a better way to experience it and to read the thoughts and comments of other listeners is on YouTube. It was also reissued on vinyl by Geometrical Lullaby back in 2019, but has been sold out for a while, as have the cassette versions from the artist himself and the Bedlam Tapes edition, which I think may have ultimately helped canonize this album with its 2016 reissue. One last fun fact is I have a hunch Fantasy is from Southern California, perhaps even Orange County where I'm located, because his second Mallsoft album, which came out in early 2013, was called Fashion Island, which is the name of a well-known outdoor mall in the wealthy part of Orange County, Newport Beach. I remember going there and watching koi in the vaguely oriental-themed outdoor pond area as a kid, as well as the sign that Fantasy used in the album's artwork collage. Okay, well I hope everyone has enjoyed this semi-abandoned episode of the Vaporwave News Network. Thank you to our supporters in the associate producer tier, Mackie and Joe B. Remember, you can sign up to support the show for $5 or $10 a month. We'll have our usual stuff in the show notes, but make sure you sign up on our website to get our email newsletter each time a new episode of the podcast or a feature article drops. I'm also going to start sending out a monthly roundup of articles, news, and videos that are adjacent to stuff in the Vaporsphere. So look out for that in your inbox if you have signed up for my emails at any tier, or sign up ASAP if you want to receive it here in early November. In addition to posting on our website, we also have an Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, and a Twitter where we post highlight graphics and videos with the releases and history mentioned in each episode. So make sure you give us a follow and repost the content. Please repost it. Reposting the graphics and video clips really helps spread the word to other people in the scene. You can find us on social media at VW News Network. If you would like to submit something to the show, check out vaporwavenewsnetwork.com/submissions to access our Google Forms for upcoming releases, upcoming events, and Spotify content. If you want to get in contact with us, you can also do it through our email, vaporwavenewsnetwork@gmail.com. This podcast is sponsored by Pacific Plaza, but if you're a reputable label or collective looking to advertise or sponsor the show, please get in contact. I've been your host, Alex, aka Trucks Passing Trucks. If you want to find me or my label on social media, you can look up Pacific Plaza Rec. That's Pacific Plaza REC on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, or TikTok. Most of those things aren't active except for the Instagram and Blue Sky, so maybe go there first. I also have an Instagram page for my music and DJing shenanigans over at Trucks Passing Trucks, all one word. If you want to book me for any gigs or streams before the end of 2024, get in contact with me on social media. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you tune in to future episodes of the Vaporwave News Network. From our part of the Vapor world, this is Alex, signing off until next time.
Vaporwave News Network.
Summer never ends in Pacific Plaza.